Right, guys, welcome back for part two of The Last Commando. Don't have much to say other than we're probably going to get into the thick of things here and to check out Doug Bird, Cam's dad's charity called Cam's Cause. Basically, he's set out to recognise the work that military personnel do and the psychological and physical implications that can have. I'll drop a link down below, but yeah, definitely check that out. And without any further ado, let's watch the next part. Cheers, guys. Alright, guys, welcome back. I won't talk too long. I just wanted to remind myself and everyone else that Cam's dad, Doug Bird, who started Cam's Cause, the charity, he also is a recipient of the Order of Australia Medal. So yeah, let's continue on.
Tell me to be careful, this is what I do. He said, look, he said it could happen to me. He said it could happen to anyone, anytime. We know the dangers, but it's just our job.
He made mention to his mother that he would die young. What he meant by that, I don't know.
Mum didn't like it because being a mother had said, no, don't talk like that, Cameron. So Cameron basically didn't mention anything about it again, but yeah.
Cameron always felt that it was for the benefit of Australia that they were over there because of all the terrorism.
5 minutes.
I once asked him, I said, do you think it's of any benefit? And he goes, yeah, definitely.
I'd love to know what he thinks now after what happened. I hope he'd still have the same opinion of what he did over there, but yeah.
There is a gap in the collective communal understanding of the war on terror and Australia's part within that war.
Yeah, children moving left to right.
But for over 10 years now, young Australian men and women have been prepared to go to another country so that that country couldn't be used as a place where people would train to launch attacks on our way.
And that 10 years turned into 20 years.
Of life. And we probably don't realise that.
Well, for 2 Commando Regiment, our experience in Afghanistan has been enduring. We've had 20 rotations, and a rotation ranges from about 4 to 6, 7, 8 months. Unfortunately, we've had to share our part of Australia's casualties.
Let's move back a little bit here.
Unfortunately,
I think Sergeant Brett Wood in front here, unfortunately was killed in action in Afghanistan as well. Another great soldier.
we've had to share our part of Australia's casualties. We've had 12 commandos killed in action, and unfortunately we've suffered 1 killed in action whilst preparing for deployment.
Wasn't really expecting that bit, but Corporal Mason Edwards was killed in training in Coltana during a live fire CQB drill. I was there at the time. Still haunts me to this day, even though I didn't know him very well, to hear that we had a KIA. It just didn't make any sense. But Mason had done, I think he'd done 7 tours of Afghanistan already. Great soldier, lost too soon, and absolute tragedy. I won't go too much into detail with that, but yeah, let's continue on.
Australia's Special Forces units have the longest presence in Australia's longest war. I went to Afghanistan to do a documentary tour of duty and feel to this day some gratitude towards Cam, because he was one of the ones who thought, well, he's here to do his job, you know, we might as well help him.
Let's go, facing that way.
At the end of the day, we're just everyday people. We come to work, we do our work, and then we go home to our families. It's not like the movies. We do a job and we just get on with the job.
Look at the variety in warfare they face.
The Commandos had been in Afghanistan since 2005.
Stand by for fire support.
They're the sharp end of the spear. They do the hard fighting.
Let's go, let's go.
And of course it is so different to the battlefields that we know well from Gallipoli and Tobruk, etc.
Mate, we've got contact to our right and contact to our left.
You can just see there the difficult terrain they fought in. I mean, they landed in a flat, open field, which no one wants to be in, through the aqueducts, through a compound, now back out facing a field with a little bit of a mud brick to protect them. That's what made them so good, their ability to adapt and overcome.
This is a battlefield that occupies a human space where you don't know the difference between a farmer with a rifle and an insurgent. They might be one and the same thing. So
that there is a regular infantry soldier. I'm not sure from which battalion. You can tell from the style and the folded up stock. They would often do the patrols in the least dangerous areas or cordons around an area that the special forces are going to attack. Yeah, as the guy mentioned, you don't know who the enemy is, and they'll often put down the AK to pick up an axe or a rake or something. Remember in Cameron's book, someone said that Cam wouldn't let that happen, and he would charge towards the enemy at full pelt to get there before they could pretend they were innocent.
Discriminating between friend and foe in a circumstance like that is extraordinarily difficult.
In regards to searching of people, I think you need to take it in a very humane way. First of all, you want to deal with any threat. You quick pat down to make sure they don't have a weapon, and then you take a step back. You treat them how you would want to be treated if you were going to be searched.
I think it's essential for you to maintain a sense of humanity when you're conducting combat operations.
Not that it really matters a great deal. Someone can probably tell me in chat below, but it looks like we were using the Block 2 M4s there, the PEC on there and suppressors.
It can be very chaotic. Some civilians will run and just run straight through the middle of an engagement area. A lot of times it's more important the shot that you don't take as opposed to the shot that you do take.
The Commandos were in the thick of the fighting, and some very intense fighting, and often against a very competent insurgent force. Luke Worsley, of course, was the first commando killed in action, and he was with Cam Baird and some others. This is another one of these battles fought in a human space where a woman picks up a weapon. You can hear children crying in the background.
It looks like they're in the back of a Bushmaster PMV. Very good protected mobility vehicle. We probably saw before earlier on there, were initially in what they called LRPVs, long range patrol vehicles or reconnaissance vehicles. Basically gun trucks with a shitload of firepower on there. However, Taliban, being guerrilla fighters, realised there's an easy exploit around that, and that was to use improvised explosive devices. My time training, well, being attached to Commando, they had started to switch over to the Bushmaster PMVs. And I don't think we ever had a single death in IED or explosion while in a Bushmaster. Just so everyone know, I wasn't Special Forces myself. I was just a reservist infantry soldier that somehow got attached to Special Forces for some training before they went overseas.
It was the 22nd of November 2007.
was sort of early evening, we'd received new orders to basically move to this area. There were some guys there that were manufacturing IEDs, which means basically it was a bomb-making facility. They were members of the Taliban.
58
Our
there.
team commander got pretty seriously ill, so Cam stepped up. That was his first operation as a team commander.
It was an operation at night into an enemy location. We made entry and there was a significant firefight within the compound.
We were engaged by a machine.
Just firefights themselves are confusing, distressing, scary, loud. Let alone through the eyes of one single binocular. I know that they changed, they had binocular night vision, but even with that, it's very hard to fight or move with that on. It does give you that edge, I guess, but it's not easy to use.
Gun. And then there was somebody from another side that had opened up with an AK-47, and they just continued firing in towards that entry point. It's called the fatal funnel. When you come in through a doorway, like people generally direct their fire into the doorway because they know that's where people come in. One of our team members, Luke Worsley, was one of the first guys in. As he came in, he actually identified where the fire was coming from and he was able to give us a target indication. And then unfortunately he's been killed. What happened next? There was a lot of dust, a lot more fire. Cameron had identified that there was a bloke that was down. He's called out man down, man down. And Cameron, myself, and another operator, we basically went over and we picked Luke up. We dragged him back out through the entry point of the compound. Once that handover was complete, that's when Cameron made his way back into the compound and basically sort of took charge of his team.
I wasn't too sure exactly what was happening.
That's one thing that it's not only unique to Special Forces in Australia, but the whole Australian Army is somewhat geared towards being able to pick up these roles on the fly. If your radio man goes down, everyone knows how to use the radio, and everyone knows what the codes are. If the gunner goes down, everyone knows how to use the gun. Everyone knows where the extra ammunition is. And to some extent too, a lot of senior diggers would have done promotion courses to be Lance Corporal, so they can also pick that role up and move on the fly as well. That's part of what makes, I think, the Australian Army very unique, and a small army that can fight very well.
But Cam, the speed in which he got to handle the situation, like, it's just unbelievable. He was able to give an accurate indication of where, this fire was coming from. He went in front of the team. He, threw grenades. He was firing his weapons. Jeez. He was telling us where to go. It was just amazing,
That's the leader.
He ended up neutralising a couple of the enemy threats, and which resulted in the compound being secured. Yeah.
Another member of my team manoeuvred through the firefight to actually get to a baby, a newborn baby, and manoeuvred that baby out of the firefight to ensure its safety.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Thank you for...
There were civilian casualties that night, as is commonly the case when these compounds are raided.
2 females and an infant child were killed during the operation.
There was quite a lot of detail revealing that in the inquiry into the loss of Luke Worsley.
Private Worsley and the remainder of his Commando team displayed remarkable adherence to their rules of engagement in a protracted...
They have to make the ultimate decision.
From what I understand here, there was a frag grenade thrown into a building. A Taliban fighter was hiding behind women and children, and they were killed. It might be a different event, but that did happen, and they did go to trial to be knocked down. Nothing ever come of that.
Decision to take somebody's life, and they then have to live with that, and they do it within all the boundaries and restraints that are put on them.
That a more detailed commission of inquiry is not warranted.
At the end of the day, they've still got to come home to people they love and live with the fact they've taken another human being's life, and be with them for the rest of their lives, wherever they may.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's something that would stay with you forever. Any act of violence, any act of even carrying a loaded weapon around town is a bit weird. And these guys can switch off their anger like a switch. So it's pretty very hard to come back from.
Cool.
Alright guys, I had to quickly switch over to the second part, so we'll probably record for another 10 minutes and stop it there for the end of part 2, but let's go.
Going on a mission in war, there's nothing entertaining about that. Because it's not like TV, it's not a movie, this is for real. It's the ultimate things about life and death, and having to take somebody's life and risking your own life.
As I said, I don't
They
think
don't
that's
actually
a decision
say they were killed or I killed. They'll talk about I cleared the room.
Sometimes they'd find euphemisms like I reduced him. I'd then understand that this soldier that I'm talking to who's having his breakfast had just been on a night mission where he killed an enemy in hand-to-hand combat.
Cameron certainly didn't take any great pleasure in the dirty aspects of the job. He didn't brag or skite or carry on about what he'd done. I can't comment and say whether or not he had trouble sleeping at night, or, you know, he was a professional soldier and he did what he had to do, and he was very good at his job.
When you've worked in a highly close-knit team as they have, often for months and years, the impact can be truly profound when they see a friend or a colleague killed or injured in action.
Yeah. I thankfully never had to deal with that, other than the training incident with Mason Edwards. But I feel a bit weird saying that I didn't know him to a great extent. I'd hate it to be one of my mates that I had deployed with and stuff, but having said that, it's never a good thing when an Australian soldier's killed, and Mason was a good guy. Yeah, sorry, a bit awkward with that one.
When Luke Worsley was killed, it was a very big deal for the unit. You know, Bravo Company lost its first bloke. It was a pivotal moment for Cameron as well.
Luke's death was very hard for Cameron. It was an awful situation for him. You know, to see a fellow soldier and someone who he was friends with, you know, dying in battle. I remember him saying to me, if I'm finding it hard, how's the family going?
Yes, come November, 7 years.
Doesn't get any easier.
Cameron came to us for each anniversary.
And they all miss him.
And he'd stay back and spend time with us after the other boys left, and we just felt kind of at ease with Cameron.
You know, you need to ask these questions, and he was willing to answer them.
Give closure.
Cameron actually won the Medal for Gallantry, which is the third highest award for bravery, for his actions on that particular night that Luke was killed. Initially, Cameron refused it on the ground that he believed that that particular day that he was doing just what any other soldier would have done.
He was talked into it from his friends and everything, so when Cameron finally said, I'm going to accept the award, he said, I'm only going to accept it if it's accepted for all of us.
That's something that I can understand. One of the medals that I wear, I didn't want to wear for a long time. Didn't feel fitting that I wore it until someone explained, you're wearing it for the people that suffered, the people that were around you, the people that helped, and the people that died. So I can understand getting a medal and not feeling like you deserve it, especially when you were all doing the same sort of thing. But nonetheless, Cam obviously well deserved the medal, and yeah.
Courage. What is courage? Courage is the wives and mothers and partners who stay at home and maintain a degree of normality day in, day out, hoping and praying that somebody 100%. Like me will never knock on their door.
100%.
Cameron had been in a relationship, a long-term relationship. He was actually married.
That is one thing that I think the families back home deserve just as many medals as sometimes as the soldiers that go over there. Not knowing, hearing that someone's been killed on an exercise, in training, on deployment, knowing that your son or daughter is there and not knowing whether or not it's them and waiting for the phone call. Something I could never understood until I left the military. Anyway, I'm a bit off topic there, but that's just my thoughts on the whole thing.
You know, they'd met when they were like 18, I think Cameron was, and was a lovely lady and one who we certainly respect.
As far as we understand, everything was pretty good. Cameron unfortunately spent time away, whether it be on deployment, whether it be on courses. And I think probably overall, from what we understand, is that we had two professional people that were going in slightly different directions. And
that's one thing that people don't understand about Special Forces is they're away for 9-10 months of the year. They're not around very often, and that's a huge workload. That's why they need the best, and that's why they do the selection they do and the rego training that they do, I guess.
And they agreed to split and have a divorce.
So where are you, bro? What's the name of this island? Water?
Don't know. It was a big part of his life, but that part of his life was over and he'd moved on. And he was happy where he was in his life.
We actually met on eHarmony and exchanged a couple of messages, and Cameron was very forward and direct, which is the kind of person he is. He, immediately told me about, his just getting out of an 11-year relationship. It was just, I hate to say like love at first sight, but it really was from that first night. Just the way he just seemed to love life. Every day we were together, I would think to myself, I am so lucky. There was honestly just no faults other than the dangerous job.
Cameron did 4 tours of Afghanistan. Each one lasted probably about 5 months.
From our understanding, we thought that this may well be Cameron's last major deployment over there, because things were coming to a bit of an end with this particular war, so Cameron was looking forward to it.
I think it would be a wrongdoing for us to walk away halfway through the operation. I think it would be very un-Australian not to finish a job that you started.
I'd speak to him and go, oh, how are things going? Yeah, no, everything's pretty quiet at the moment. Looking back, I think it was just so close to him coming home.
Job was to target an insurgent network within the Cod Valley. So the day Cameron was killed, it was different to a lot of other jobs we'd been on.
We might just pause it there. It's starting to get into the next sort of phase of the story. Yeah, we'll pause it there and we'll come back for part 3. cheers guys, hope you're enjoying it. Much respect to Cam.